how would anthropology be different to psychology?
You've triggered me. Look, I think it can be different. There are also some crossovers, right? Like I think psychology, like many of the social sciences and the humanities, they're trying to understand something about what it means to be human. I think that the key difference is in methodology and the assumptions that we make around what we can and can't do. So, I think definitely psychology is built upon a very particular sort of epistemology or a structure of knowledge. It's built upon a very particular philosophy that has a strong history and culture that underpins it. It locates, human like our humanity and our personality within our minds. I mean, these are very limited descriptions of psychology. I know that psychology has been pushed further, and it isn't just a purely schematic thing that just deals with a cognitive or psychological framework. But if we're looking at the differences, certainly psychology is something that is kind of bound in the mind. Whilst it may look at social and cultural determinants, certainly Bronfenbrenner has some wonderful models in there as well. I think it is limited to a kind of a constrained idea of what it means to be human. And I think anthropologists take on a much more sort of holistic approach. And we also take on an approach which challenges Western sort of analytical, academic, psychological, psychoanalytic models explicitly. It says that they are just one mechanism through which to understand our humanity, our subjectivity, our relationships, our well-being. But there are many, many others that we can draw from that actually exist outside of that framework. And within the psychological framework that has like a scientific a criteria, it can define sort of pathologies of being, which we as anthropologists might just look at just different ways of being. So we may not apply that normative construction of what it means to be human upon complex and diverse ways of being human, and acknowledge that if you don't fit within a statistical or a societal norm, that doesn't mean there's something necessarily wrong with you. It just means that you have a different way of engaging in the world. And when we look across cultures and across time, different cultures and different historical periods have employed those differences of those human differences in different ways. Mm-hmm. Some in ways that have marginalized and excluded people, and some which have actually drawn their differences in to contribute to the way that we function as a society. So, long-winded way of saying things. I mean, but having said that, like I play with psychology. I shouldn't say I play with it, but I utilize psychological frameworks and theories all the time in the work that I do around mental health, around marginalization, around diversity, equity, inclusion. And it's just another wonderful framework that we can use. I just don't hold them as being the only framework. I don't hold them as being rigid or universal. I think that's a big difference there. We don't try to apply universals based upon sort of specific scientific methods that can often tell us more about the cohort that was being studied specifically. You can't then apply that across, you can't generalize that, but also they tell us about the norms of a society as opposed to the lived experience of the people that we're really trying to understand.